Aaron photographed Medishna Kaz, Mokon and Bodam, Pokagan Band in the band Dalkwas, Deuteronomy and Rao, Elkhart and Doshvia, Granger and Dida. I'm just a beginner student. I have 3 children. My oldest is 5. I have a 3-year-old, and my youngest is 10 months. I started about 3 years ago when there was an ad in our tribal letter about a beginner's class. Because a lot of the other classes we had before were kind of, I guess, a little bit harder for somebody who didn't really have any Potawatomi to get started in. And so that was the class that Kevin started. And at the time, my middle son was only a couple months old, and he was really attached to me. And to be away from him for like 3 hours with him nursing and things was a stretch. So I called and I said, is it okay if I bring my son? And they said, go ahead and bring him. And Kevin was fine with that. And Lewis kind of grew up in that class until he got a little too much, like 2 hours was too much for him. So, and Kevin always welcomed him. He never was like, get that kid out of here. And he let him help him and do stuff like that. My daughter attends the Pokagan Head Start, so she gets the language there as well. And she's a big motivator for me because she wants to know Potawatomi. We're in the car and she's like, Mom, how do you say that in Potawatomi? Or if we're doing something around the house, she wants to know. So one of my goals is for me to actually be able to tell her a word in Potawatomi rather than, Mommy doesn't know, let's look it up or something like that. So I enjoy going to class. It's fellowship with other tribal members. So that's good for my mom also comes. She was the first generation to be raised without the Potawatomi language. My great aunt was in one of the boarding schools, and one of the boarding schools' missions was to take that language away from them. So my goal is not to be fluent. I know that's like a high, lofty goal because it is a hard language, but my goal is just to bring back as many words as I can, to do that for my ancestors, to do that for my kids, hoping my kids see that it's important and that they'll want to build onto that. Exposing it to them now at a young age versus, well, maybe they'll think it's important when, they're 13 or, 16. Now they see it's important. It's easier for them to learn it now versus like me being 32 and trying to figure it out. So starting them young with that. My son, my middle son, we kind of, even though he was raised in Kevin's class, he had a hard time with speech. He's just a little delayed. He could understand everything he said. He just had a hard time communicating. But when I study, I have to do it in a way that's kid-friendly because my kids are with me all the time. So we have these fun little flashcards, and my daughter went and grabbed them, and she's like, Mom, can we do Potawatomi? And I was like, sure. I'm never going to tell her no. Because it's important, and I want her to think it's fun and to build on that. And I didn't really push it with Lewis because we were just trying to work on him talking to us. And he came over and he's like, me too, and I was like, okay. And we'll just try. So all you can do is just try. And he said those words so easy, like this is so much easier for me than English. And it's probably because he followed Kevin around for like 2 hours, 1 day a week, just listening to him. And so that was the big thing, was that, okay, we know you can communicate, and we just kind of built off of that. And he'll say Potawatomi words like my daughter will. We're just trying to do it in every day, not like make it a big production where it's going to be hard. It's just trying to do everyday words, replacing them with Potawatomi words or things like that. That it's fun for them, that it's not like I'm forcing them to learn it and then they'll like, oh, my mom used to make me talk Potawatomi in the house, and I won't do that to my kids. I don't want it to be like that. So just my goal is just trying to do a little bit at a time, hoping my kids will want to build onto that. Maybe their kids will want to build onto that. Starting them young so they know it's important. And later on, if they want to make that choice to build on it or not, it's their choice. I don't want to be like, well, Mom, why didn't you ever try to teach us any of that? You know, so this way they're exposed to it early, wanting to pick up on it early. And right now my kids think it's fun. Like I said, when I study, I can't really sit down with a book and notes and go over it because my kids are, you know, crawling all over me or want me to do this and want me to do that. So like we have the fun flashcards, or we take one of their favorite books, and if there's animals in it, we take out the English words and we'll put in the Potawatomi words. So that's kind of like an everyday thing that we do because my kids love to read. They'll probably let you read them the phone book if you let them. That's just how much they love to read. And that's one of the things I started in September was the Anishinaabe and Volcom, which is what we do at the Dowagiac Libraries. We have a book every month that's written by a Native author about other Natives so that kids see that they're in a story. Maybe, you know, that will inspire them to want to write a story, learn more. We started that in September, and when we first started it, we only had 4 kids, and 3 of those 4 were mine. And coming into it, now we have at least 12 kids coming, and we read a story, and we do a little project with the story, and I try to bring in one Potawatomi word, one that has to do with the book, that's easy to remember, that's easy to say, in hopes that, you know, maybe they'll want to start coming to the kids class that we have, and that's open to anybody at our library, and we do that once a month. So my kids are a big motivator for me, which is why I started that book club and why I try to teach them what I know, hoping that they'll want to build on that. So my kids are my big motivation whenever I go to class, and my ancestors, because I want to try and do, I guess, some justice to them, you know, that they're not forgotten, that we can try and build on that a little at a time.
Could we have Sydney go next?
Boozhoo I'm Sydney Olson. Pokagon of Devnagwas, and I'm Pokagon. I'm Little Miss Niles. I go to Brandywine Elementary. My teacher is Mr. Ackles. He has a different way of thinking. He teaches you to where you understand it. But he says he's old. And he is part Native American, but he doesn't really talk about it all the time. He said, because we try to stick to the schedule, but sometimes we have long conversations, and he takes us somewhere other teachers won't take you. And when I think about it, when I dance at powwows, like what he talks about, and then that helps me dance better because I know more than what I did, and it helps me climb up out of the tank, not getting pulled back down.
Gabriel Tone, Nishnikasi Potawatomi. My name is Gabriel Tone, and I'm of the Pokagon Potawatomi Fish Clan. I'm also 17 years old. I'm a senior in high school, and I first became a student of the language my junior year when I was taking classes at Southwestern Michigan College. And I was signing up for classes, and I couldn't decide on like one of my classes. And my friends came up to me and they're like, "Hey, there's this Pokagon class that they're doing, and aren't you Native American?" I was like, "Yeah." So I decided to take the class, and Mr. Kevin Doherty was my teacher. And from there, I just learned the language. He always used like stuffed animals and things, and he would teach us the words by like showing us this like little stuffed lizard, and he'd say "Gakbanango," and we would just kind of learn that way with physical objects. And I thought that was pretty cool because I've taken Spanish and other language classes in high school, and I've never learned in that way. So I thought that was a really cool thing to do. So as I said, I'm Fish Clan, and Fish Clan people frequently perform as the thinkers of their tribe. They're the teachers and some of the wisest members. And although I'm Fish Clan, most of my extended family is Bear Clan, and these are the protectors and warriors of the tribe. That's why the bear is the symbol on the tribal police cars and on their badges too. So belonging to the clan kind of makes up your role in the tribe. The tribe of the Bodway-Wadmy, or Potawatomi Indians, has 7 bands in the United States. They're in Wisconsin, Michigan, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Though through the years of the Pokagon language has diminished greatly. So being raised in a Pokagon family, I attended powwows and participated in native traditional ceremonies. I've been a dancer, a drummer, a singer, and a speaker, many of these. My grandpa always passed around a feather before we ate so that we could say what we're thankful for. And we would often do other traditions together too. My grandma would make us regalia for dances. She would sew them by hand. So I was raised pretty traditionally. In the ceremonies I attended, I would hear Pokagon being spoken, and this kind of gave me a basis for the language and a cadence, to know the cadence, but I still had absolutely no clue what they were saying whenever we were doing that. So I decided to take classes on how to learn the language. As a student of the Potawatomi language, the first thing I realized is that Native American is nothing like English. It was a totally new sentence structure and concepts that were completely foreign to me. The language is pretty complicated and lengthy. But hearing it while growing up really helped me in the class. In the class, we learned the basics of the language. Many of them were simple sentences and animals, just everyday words that we would use. But during the course, I really learned how old the language is. There's not many words for a lot of modern things that we say. So like, if you wanted to say something like football, we would say Kokoshwiagin, which literally translates to pigskin. But you could also say Zet Pakwakwa, which is foot and ball. So because of this, when you're speaking Potawatomi today, you have to be pretty creative. I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of the language, because in class we had fun creating our own translations of modern words. And something else that I found fun about the class is when we would go outside and learn words by pointing at natural objects. So Mr. Doherty would point at things like different kinds of trees and leaves, and we would say what they're called in Pokagon. To help us with this also, we received books from the tribe to identify different herbs and plants. The structure of the language is the thing that many people really found difficult to grasp. In Pokagon, words combine to make larger words instead of saying one long sentence. So it's like when we say don't as do not, but you would pretty much say your whole sentence as one word. I found this process to be challenging, but after some practice, it became a lot easier to do. But really, there's more to our language than just the words. The language holds our traditions and our heritage. It holds the centuries of hard work for the natives who were here long before we were. And it holds the memories of the natives who, despite simulation, continue to speak our language for years to come and pass down the tradition for future generations. This is why we must keep the language from dying, and because without the language, traditions can't carry on. It's the basis for everything that we do. My grandfather, Tom Topash, told me that the true essence of who we are of Native Americans comes from the language. All spirituality is sewn together by the way we speak. And I thought that was pretty cool, because it really shows how that we need to keep the language from dying because it holds who we are and the traditions that we carry. Thank you very much.
round of applause. I think that the type of work that you're doing is really important, and when you think about language loss, it happens over generations, right? And when I get really overwhelmed by the fact that I'm nowhere near fluent yet, and just like what you were saying, is you're teaching your kids more than you knew. And so if we can have a generational perspective, the future looks a lot less bleak for the way like me, so good job.
Gwen, it's just, I mean, just try. The most you can do is just try. I mean, every little bit helps. I know a lot of people come up with excuses not to try because it's easier not to try than to do it and realize that it's hard. But like I said, I have my 3 kids. My husband's a firefighter and a medic, so he works 24-hour shifts. So I mean, if I can work out a schedule where my kids are taken care of and I can teach them and I can go to class, I don't think there's like very many valid excuses not to at least try. Especially if you contact the language department, and they'll give you free resources to, you know, get you involved, or, you know, there's online classes. We have an app now. Like, there's really no excuse for somebody not to at least try. Even if they just learn a couple of words, that's a couple words we didn't have before that they could pass on. So, just how I think of it.
I say that you have a little one in your arms. Don't be afraid to say, even the little that you say you only know a little, speak in that. Say those words to your little one. I'm very proud that my granddaughter, see, my daughters don't speak any of our language, unfortunately. But my granddaughter, the first words out of her mouth, you know, we produce language with what? With your breath. That's your spirit. And it stays. So it's something I said yesterday. Some people, I'll repeat it if you weren't here yesterday. Know that your language is never dead because the words of your ancestors are still out there. Yeah? They spoke it. It's not something that's ethereal and floats away. Linguists say that, but that's not true. So the language is very much around you. It's inside you. Speak it and give your breath to that little one. It'll be a part of who they are. So my little granddaughter, and when I would feed her, I'd babysit her and I'd feed her and I'd be talking to her in Tiwa. And I was so amazed when she asked for food, when she's hungry, she would ask in Tiwa, not making a sentence, but even with one word, because I would say, good food, good food. And so she'd ask, when she's hungry, water. And to this day, she's 3 years old now. She knows water as she says, the barrel. She wants water. Bread. You know, the things that feed you, things that nourish you. When you're feeding your child, that is the prime time. Because you're nourishing their spirit with the food and with your being. I'm so happy to see this little one here on here. He's the future. He's the future.
Okay, thank you again.